Howdy. Tom Freeman, Program Manager for the Pavement Management Program, TTI, 26 years, University of Illinois, and I'll try and get us back on time. The question that we have about maintaining or managing is really a question of, are you trying to do things for today, or are you trying to plan for tomorrow and beyond? That's sort of the question about if we're maintaining our system or maintaining our assets, we're sort of responding to the everyday things that come in that have to be taken care of. But if we're going to try and manage our assets, then we need to think a little bit more long term. By the way, I'm going to be reading parts of his presentation because he has extensive notes that he was going to read. Although the final rules are not completed yet, the language that Congress used in formulating MAP 21 has some important implications for pavement management. A couple of these include the concept for requiring a risk-based asset management plan, a requirement for setting targets and reporting on progress, and a set of minimum standards for pavements and bridges on all interstate highways have to meet these. In formulating these requirements, Congress looked at how state programs were run and basically selected the best practices for a national program. The corresponding gain for states is that many of these separate funding programs are combined into a single national highway performance program with a lot of flexibility for states to use funds as they see fit. It is similar to a performance-based project that looks at outcomes rather than prescribing how funds are to be used. Sort of the idea of, do you say, make me a cake, or do you say, here's the recipe? Thinking about it. Think about how much of the highway assets and funding involve payments, and you'll see why payment data collection, managing, and reporting has become much more important than in the past. Over the past 2 decades, the analysis of investments has grown immensely with the development of computers, management systems, data collection devices, and economics. Private industry has embraced these techniques and continues to make improvements. MAP 21 is asking the public sector, and transportation in particular, to do the same. It is critical to know what assets you have, what condition they are in, the risk or probability of major investment need, and have strategies to sustain the systems both physically and financially. Agencies should not have to rely on guessing, expert opinion, hey, I take that personal, or the need for unanticipated revenues. Rules for implementing MAP 21 will not be available, it says, until spring 2014 at the earliest, and all of this is contained in the MAP 21 legislation. What is transportation asset management? The only reason I'm going to read it for you is because he purposely grayed out some of that stuff, and it might be a little difficult to read, especially if you didn't listen to me when I said move down. Asset management is a strategic and systematic process of operating, maintaining, and improving physical assets with a focus on engineering and economic analysis based upon quality information to identify a structured sequence of maintenance, preservation, repair, rehabilitation, and replacement actions that will achieve and sustain the desired state of good repair over the life cycle of the assets at a minimum practical cost. That's what your agency goal is, and it really is what the public expects out of you. In order to do this, you need a formal pavement management system, especially in a place as large as Texas. It might be in some of the smaller states you can remember the condition of all the roads, but even for an area engineer, it's difficult to remember the condition, when stuff was built, how much money we spent, all that stuff on all the pavements. In even one county, it can be difficult. I just got back from Amarillo in the Childress area. Sometimes it wouldn't be that difficult because there's one highway runs this way and one that runs this way. But in some of the more complicated ones, like Magny was shown with Tyler, it could be quite a challenge. What are the benefits of pavement preservation? I'm going to click all these in here. I've sort of assumed if you're here you can read. I try not to read the slides. Improved performance. A reasonable expectation of preventive maintenance is that over time the agency and traveling public can expect improved pavement performance. When treatments are applied to pavements in good condition, these will keep the pavement in good condition for longer. A program of preventive maintenance treatments will postpone the need for rehabilitation. This is also desirable because it delays large capital expenditures. This can be illustrated in a graph of pavement performance versus time, which you've all seen, and we'll get to that in a minute. Reduce pavement expenditures. Another benefit of preventive maintenance programs over time is saving money. It's not so much saving money as we get to apply our money in a better way and it extends it. Most agencies which have implemented a preventive maintenance program are realizing cost benefits in the form of cost savings or cost leveling, a reduction in year-to-year variation if needed money. As preventive maintenance extends the time until major rehabilitation, the long-term life cycle costs of maintaining a pavement network are reduced, thereby eventually lowering the required pavement preservation budget. And it does go on quite a bit. I can't see how he could have finished this in 15 minutes. But one of the questions that he does pose in here that I think is very excellent is, if you were to tell the traveling public that this year you laid 165 tons of asphalt, striped 462 lane miles, spent $1.7 million on emergency maintenance, spent $3.6 million on snow plowing, spent $531,000 on bridge maintenance, and inspected 464 bridges, what would the public say? I think they'd say nothing, because you guys are professionals and you don't care about the numbers I just gave you. What you want to know is the road better? Is it smoother? Are there less delays? That's what we need to tell. Telling the public how much we did doesn't really interest them. Telling them stuff is smoother, it's in better performance, or showing them that it's in better performance, that's the kind of things that they're going to care about, and hopefully the kind of things we can get out of pavement management. Okay. Pavement management can support the agency's asset management activities by providing the type of information listed in the previous slide. However, in many agencies, strong links have not been established throughout the agency, and pavement management program is not as effective as it could be. Therefore, an important focus for this presentation is to better understand the role of pavement management in a transportation agency and to identify strategies to help establish or reestablish links that do not concurrently exist. It is important to know who does what so the best decision can be made. Pavement management can have an important influence within the agency to help ensure that the pavement assets are managed effectively. The point is further strengthened with the next 3 slides, in which we identify how pavement management supports an agency's transportation asset management program. Asset management provides a framework for both long-range and short-range planning activities. The AASHTO Subcommittee on Transportation Asset Management has developed the following definition for asset management, and it was what we read earlier. Transportation asset management is a strategic and systematic process of operating, maintaining, upgrading, and expanding physical assets effectively through their life cycle. It focuses on business and engineering practices for resource allocation and utilization with the objective of better decision-making based upon quality information, as well as well-defined objectives. Then we're going to talk about some of the parts of that. Analysis of options and trade-offs. This includes examination of options within each investment area, as well as trade-offs across different investment areas, which support the agency's policies, goals, and objectives, facilitated by economic analysis methods. The definition of investment areas is flexible and needs to be tailored to have how an individual agency does business. Option analysis and trade-off analysis are often facilitated by economic analysis methods. Resource allocation. Down in there. These decisions are the critical allocations of dollars, staff, equipment, materials, and other resources to different strategies, programs, or asset classes within the organization. They are always based on the results of the proactive analysis of options and trade-offs and cover all investment areas and focus directly on the performance goals and service levels within the life cycle performance considerations. Customer expectations cannot be forgotten. Skipping down. Monitoring system conditions and performance measures. This is the monitoring and the all-important feedback portion of asset management that measures the extent to which established performance objectives are being addressed. This information has to be objective, current, and targeted towards the goals, objectives, and priorities of the agency. Now, I'm sure you've all seen this slide, which I missed. There we go. You've all seen this slide many, many times. This is the idealized performance graph. Hopefully, you don't have a whole lot of stuff down in this area. Well, this slide thing didn't work. The pointer doesn't want to do what I want to do. Hopefully you don't have a bunch, point it the right way. You don't have a bunch of pavements down in there. We will have some down in here. But this is the idealized. It has improved to reflect other things that we do. For instance, a life cycle looks sometimes like this. This would be an overlay life cycle where you let it deteriorate to a certain point, do some major work on it, let it deteriorate, and do some major work. This used to be what we thought was the best way we could do stuff, is let's overlay it all the time. But it doesn't really work like that. It really works more like this, where we're doing preventive maintenance to it. Now, as Maggie pointed out earlier, if it's not in good structural condition, you're going to get a limited increase out of this. So we need to make sure that we're working on the roads that are structurally sufficient. But this is the goal we really should be looking for, is this preventive maintenance where we're maintaining it and preserving the condition of it. If we do stuff while it's still in good condition, these treatments last longer, they perform better, everybody is happier, and they will cost less over the long run. Again, assuming you have a pavement that will respond to preventive maintenance and is structurally sound. There's a example from the Kansas DOT. They were able to achieve using long-term commitment using pavement management. They've been following a pavement management system for more than 20 years and has realized significant benefits in terms of improvement to the network conditions, as evidenced comparing this to this. A key part of the success was using a pavement management to justify investment in a mix of programs for preserving and replacing pavement costs effectively. It's just easier to do it that way. So coming to a bit of a summary, good pavements cost less than bad pavements over the long run. Of course, do nothing is always our cheapest alternative. But you can see that comparing over the years these conditions, when they instituted a pavement management system, they were able to cut their long-term costs and much better balance the expenditures from year to year. They had kind of that thing that Maggie was talking about the condition bouncing up and down every few years. But I wanted to emphasize that the pavement has to be structurally adequate for this to happen. This is a little too late to be trying to apply preventive maintenance methods. That's all I have from this presentation. I'll answer what questions I can, however I can. Mr. Smith. I sure hope it does, because I think that's very, very important. If you don't know what's there, it's difficult to compare two pieces of pavement, find out which one's performing properly. So yeah, I didn't see it in here, but this isn't the legislation, wasn't included in his packet. If I'd written it, it would be in there, the work history and also some layer information. I didn't repeat the question, but I sort of did in my answer. Steve said it's a holy grail. It's the one thing I think that we're missing. The one big hole that we have is that we don't know when something was built. We're sort of developing some work history in that we have now computerized records, not just some old files that somebody stuck in a box someplace. So you can go up and look at last year's seal coat plan. You can look at last year's overlays and what stuff like that, or several years back. So we're kind of getting there the wrong way. I remember 26 years ago we started talking about history begins now. The idea was that we're going to start doing our work history right now. Even if we don't go back in time, gosh, if we did right now, God, we'd have 25 years of it. We'd be pretty well along the way. But we didn't end up following that policy. Any other questions? All right, thank you for your time, and Jim Travis for his notes.